to discuss, learn, and share our experiences in hurricane preparedness and mitigation, I'd like to take a moment to remind us all of the crucial role that we play in keeping our communities safe during these potentially devastating natural disasters. Hurricanes, as we know, are a part of life here in Florida, but it's through our collective efforts in preparedness and education that we can minimize the impact and help our communities recover and thrive. It's essential that we continue to collaborate and innovate in order to protect our citizens and preserve our communities. This conference serves as a platform for thought leaders, first responders, government officials, and industry professionals to come together and share their knowledge, experiences, and best practices. In doing so, we can ensure that our communities are well prepared and resilient in the face of future hurricanes. The people of Palm Beach County understand the importance of being ready for the unexpected, and we take great pride in our efforts to safeguard our homes, our businesses, and infrastructure. Together, we've made significant progress in implementing new technologies and strategies to minimize the impact of hurricanes. But there's always more to be done. This venue offers an invaluable opportunity for us to come together and learn from one another so that we can continue to improve our hurricane response efforts and build an even stronger, more resilient communities. But while we're here for a serious purpose, I'd be remiss if I did not mention some of the fantastic attractions and activities here in Palm Beach County that we can offer you during your visit. Our beautiful beaches with their warm sands and crystal clear waters are just the beginning. I invite you to explore our vibrant downtown areas, which boast a variety of world-class dining and shopping options. For those who appreciate the arts, the Norton Museum of Art, the Kravis Center for the Performing Arts, and the Flagler Museum are sure to impress. And for our outdoor enthusiasts, I recommend taking a stroll along our lake trail or visiting one of our many breathtaking parks. A particular favorite of mine is the Murakami Museum in Japanese Gardens, where you can experience the beauty and tranquility of Japanese culture. If you're here with your children, I could recommend this Cox Science Center, the Palm Beach Zoo, and the world-famous Lion Country Safari adventure, so you can walk through the wildlife preserve, getting up close and personal with some of nature's most majestic creatures. But in closing, my deepest gratitude is to everyone in attendance for your dedication and commitment to hurricane preparedness and mitigation. Your work makes a tangible difference in the lives of millions of people, and we're proud to support you in that effort. So thank you once again for joining us in Palm Beach County for the annual Governor's Hurricane Conference. I wish you a productive and enjoyable experience, and I hope you'll find time to explore our beautiful county during your visit. Together, let us continue to protect our communities and embrace the spirit of resilience that defines our great state of Florida. Thank you, and enjoy your conference.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss. You and I have personally worked together on several EOC activations, including Michael, Dorian, Isaias, and of course COVID. And you've been a real true partner in emergency management. I appreciate that. We would like you to get social with us this week. Thanks to Palm Beach County Public Affairs Department, we have a multifaceted social media program, so please follow us on Twitter at FloridaGHC, like us on Facebook at FloridaGHC, monitor hashtag GHC 2023 and hashtag GHC Success, all one word, and add these hashtags to your post, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And be sure to download our interactive mobile app for the conference. Download it free from the Apple App Store and Google Play. Search for GHC 2023, all one word, or using your phone's camera, capture the QR code that is on the screens behind me and follow the link. Our mobile app is an easy-to-use tool that has many useful resources that will help you easily navigate your way through the conference. I also want to take a moment to thank the multitude of volunteers that are working behind the scenes to make this conference so successful. Our room monitors, our registration staff, all the audiovisual wizards in the back there, the computer technology geniuses, the certificate preparers and the certificate runners, the logistical volunteers that move and haul tons of equipment, our drivers, runners, and countless other volunteers who log hundreds of hours throughout this entire very long week, and others who dedicate hundreds more hours before and well after the conference to make this conference the excellent value that it is and an outstanding experience for you. If I could ask all of our conference volunteers, our board members, our committee chairs, and committee members to please stand, please join me in a round of applause for these generous supporters. We owe them all a great debt of gratitude and appreciation. Let's just take a few moments to discuss our conference theme, Partnering for Success. You ever feel like the world is being held together by duct tape, zip ties, and coat hangers? Well, you're not alone. I'm sure that many in this room, at times, you feel like you're hanging on by a thread. And as we will all see in a few moments, despite the statistics with the 2 landfalling hurricanes along the Florida peninsula, this past hurricane season was anything but a normal season. The long road to recover continues throughout Florida, especially in southwest Florida, where Hurricane Ian made landfall as a top-end Category 4 hurricane with a catastrophic storm surge that ventured nearly 25 miles inland. Hurricane Ian is the deadliest hurricane to strike the U.S. mainland in almost 2 decades and one of the costliest hurricanes on record. Over 5,000 homes were destroyed and nearly every traffic signal. And despite its modest strength, the breadth of Hurricane Nicole's winds acted like a powerful Florida nor'easter, chewing up large stretches of the Atlantic coastline in mid-November, the latest hurricane to strike the Florida peninsula since records began in 1851. But the good news is we collectively held it together. Together, we persevered. In fact, for the most part, we excelled. Our ability to plan, to collaborate, to deploy, and to help others in need showed our strength, our fortitude, and our determination in overcoming these extraordinary challenges. This past season exemplified the way we do business in Florida through collaboration, coordination, flexibility, forging pre-event partnerships, trusting our partners in the heat of the response, and most importantly, serving those in need. We know the value of partnerships. As emergency responders, we know that our success hinges on our professional relationships. We know the importance of bringing our partners together to take advantage of similar capabilities and complementary resources. By leveraging our affiliate resources' strengths, both human and capital, we are better able to rapidly scale up our own response. Because of our collaboration, we offered far more innovative and comprehensive solutions to the myriad of complex problems that were presented by both Ian and Nicole. We know that successful partnerships don't just happen. They are cultivated and nurtured well before any disaster work is needed or started. But building a successful and solid partnership is not easy. Successful collaboration requires commitment, teamwork, compromise, and confidence in each partner. And just as important, honesty, respect, trust. Consider that 30 to 40% of conversations among collaborative partners are about actual business. On the other hand, the remaining 60 to 70% of the time is spent on building the friendship and trust. Think about that. This week, we celebrate the years of invisible work that we have invested throughout our careers of connecting and networking with each other to enhance the breadth and capability of our respective programs. Our efforts paid off. Today, you will hear that despite 150-mile-an-hour winds and 11-foot-plus storm surge, numerous local, state, and federal agencies, along with hundreds, if not thousands, of responders, mutual aid crews, strike teams, volunteers, pitched in to augment and restore the countless affected regional and local services and rescues. In most of these areas, these rescues and services and resources were done quickly, services were restored, and further degradation was effectively mitigated. Success. We know that successful partnerships never go out of style. However, they need to be continuously supported and nurtured. They need to be adapted to new technologies and innovations, which brings me back to the 37th Annual Governor's Hurricane Conference. Mr. Lee Mayfield, the chairman of the program committee, and his 25 all-volunteer members have spent the last 9 months developing and choreographing an innovative and informative array of educational and networking opportunities to help you develop and nurture your successful partnerships. I think we've prepared an excellent program for you. We have carefully chosen qualified and experienced faculty to present the material in each of our sessions. With over 360 hours of educational sessions, including 35 training sessions and 59 workshops, the Governor's Hurricane Conference remains the nation's premier event for the delivery of economical training and education to ensure our ability to adequately respond to and recover from tropical events. This year's training sessions, workshops, and general session will not only look at new approaches and best practices, but we'll also look at how we can continue partnering for success. Furthermore, we believe that the entire conference agenda, with over 20 breaks and social events scheduled throughout the week, helps to create an environment that allows each of you to continue to nurture those successful partnerships that were employed last hurricane season, as well as hopefully establish several new partnerships. We welcome you to join us in the process, to actively participate in the sharing of lessons learned and supporting each other. We wish you a very successful week. As the conference has grown, so has the partnership with our exhibitors, and today they continue to be our most loyal supporters. Please show your recognition of their partnership with us by visiting the exhibit hall and participating in activities that we have planned for you. At the conclusion of this session, the exhibit hall will open, followed by a complimentary lunch at noon for all registered attendees. Your conference name tag is all you need to attend. This evening at 5 p.m., there will be a networking reception in the exhibit hall for all registered attendees. Please again remember to wear your name tag and bring your ticket that you received at registration for a complimentary beverage. Tomorrow between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m., we have dedicated time exclusively for the exhibit hall, which includes a beverage break. The exhibit hall closes tomorrow at noon, so I encourage you to be sure to manage your time wisely. There. Now let's get started with the rest of the general session program. It is my honor to present to you Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunez. Lieutenant Governor Nunez was born and raised in Miami, Florida. She was elected as Florida's first Hispanic female lieutenant governor in 2018 and subsequently re-elected in 2022. As lieutenant governor, she was tasked with overseeing the Florida Department of Health, as well as serving as chair of Space Florida. Additionally, she serves as chair of Florida's Cybersecurity Task Force and is also a member of the statewide Council on Human Trafficking. Lieutenant Governor Nunez previously served as a state representative in the Florida House of Representatives from 2010 to 2018 and was named as Speaker Pro Tem from 2016 to 2018. Lieutenant Governor Nunez began her healthcare career working at Jackson Health System here in Miami in 2004 as State Director of Government Relations, and in 2 years later, she was promoted to Vice President of Government Relations. In 2010, she became Vice President of Community Affairs for Kendall Regional and Aventura Hospitals. Lieutenant Governor Nunez is a proud graduate of Florida International University, where she received her Bachelor of Arts in International Relations and Political Science and a master's degree in public administration. She is married to her husband, Adrian, and together they are proud parents of 3 children. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you Lieutenant Governor Nunez.
Well, good morning. Thank you all so much, and thank you for that kind introduction. It's an honor to be here at our 37th Annual Governor's Hurricane Conference. I was with you several years ago, and so it's great to be back. And again, I'm really excited about the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you all today. Last Friday, Governor DeSantis and I celebrated the conclusion of another legislative session, and we were thrilled with the outcome. It is, in my opinion, probably one of the most successful legislative sessions in recent history, and certainly so many things that came out of this session that I think many of you will be interested in. But we are proud of the agenda that we were able to set out and accomplish on behalf of Floridians. Everything from universal school choice to affordable housing, making sure that we're delivering for Floridians in terms of historic tax cuts, also reducing the cost of prescription drugs, and tackling a number of issues that affect us not only locally at the state level, but also nationally, such as combating the nefarious actions of the Chinese Communist Party and making sure that they can no longer purchase our agricultural lands or lands adjacent to our critical infrastructure and military bases. And so we believe that Florida is better because of the work that we've endeavored in partnership with the legislature. And as we get through these bills and the governor continues to sign bills throughout the next couple of weeks, and also tackling the budget, which was, in my opinion, really groundbreaking in terms of identifying issues that are important for critical infrastructure, making sure that our most important priorities as a state were reflected in that budget. And again, something that I think you all will be very interested in and keep tabs on. But with just 3 weeks from the start of the 2023 hurricane season, now is the time to prepare. And I know I don't need to share that message with this group, but I do believe it's incumbent upon all of us to further the communications with our communities, make sure that everyone understands. Last year, as we saw and has been mentioned with Hurricanes Ian and Nicole, was something I think, again, for those of us in this room, that really sets the tone as to why we need to constantly be in a state of preparation. In addition, this year's tax package, I'm proud to announce, will provide much needed relief for Floridians across all walks of life, from Key West to Pensacola. But in addition, we ensured the first of its kind. We have a hurricane relief tax season in which we will have 2, not 1, but 2 tax holidays for disaster preparedness. So we're excited about those 2 14-day windows in which Floridians will be able to purchase much needed supplies as we continue to prepare and insist that our communities are prepared. So everything from flashlights and lanterns, radios, tarps, generators, ground anchor kits, making sure coolers, all of those things that people need to prepare for hurricane season will be tax-free. And those tax-free windows will run from May 27th to June 9th. So in just a couple of weeks for the first one, and then again, August 26th through September 8th. So again, we want Floridians to make a plan, to know their zones, to have multiple ways to receive weather alerts, making sure that they create a list of important documents, review those documents, review their insurance policies, build a kit with your family members in mind, making sure you meet the needs of your particular family members, including pets, which now also we have some of the tax-free items will include pets and baby supplies. But again, making sure that you're purchasing those issues, those items rather, that are important to your family members for at least a 7-day supply. It's also the time to plan and collaborate, deploy and assist others in anticipation of hurricane season. And as has been mentioned, this year's theme, Partnering for Success. I can tell you that from our vantage point, hurricane preparedness, mitigation, response, recovery efforts, they're only possible when we come together and we partner, indeed for success. And so when we partner together, we're able to create stronger and more resilient communities and making sure the moment in the communities based on the specific needs that you all may have for your counties, for your communities, your cities. It is said, and I know Director Guthrie constantly reminds me, that all disasters are local. But what I can say is that the state has an unwavering commitment to assist and to partner with our local communities that are at the forefront of dealing with these events. So we know Florida is no stranger to hurricanes, and I am a native Floridian. I don't know how many native Floridians are in the audience. I gather quite a few, but I'm sure you could rattle off the list of names of hurricanes that you have lived through. I know I can as well. And while we have had years in which the state is relatively unscathed coming out of hurricane season, what we've seen is that continuous preparation is the only way to approach hurricane seasons. So I think back to 2017 when Hurricane Irma, a very powerful storm, came through our state. It was an unprecedented threat. It created all kinds of issues for communities. It hit various areas throughout our state and really left a path of devastation throughout our communities. And so at that time, as was mentioned, I was not Lieutenant Governor at that moment. I was serving in the State House, and I had the unique opportunity to chair the state's Select Committee on Hurricane Preparedness and Response. So we spent an incredible amount of time listening to testimony, going through all the different areas, and really creating a framework. At that point, I think we had gotten a little rusty in our hurricane preparedness. I think that is no longer the case. I think we all realize the importance of continuous preparation. So as we look at ways of really identifying the issues that are going to require our attention, our action, we want to continue focusing on those items and those issues that we addressed back then and continue to address right now. So we've come a long way. I know, again, those of you in this room are constantly looking at your plans, looking at ways to address the unique needs of your communities. But I believe that our state is better equipped, better prepared for future storms, and you all are an integral part of that. In fact, last year, as was mentioned, our state was tested yet again with Hurricanes Ian and Nicole. We experienced an extremely active hurricane season. Clearly, those devastating impacts of Hurricanes Ian and Nicole, the loss of life, the toll on our communities, the infrastructure. I would say that as we were monitoring Hurricane Ian, the governor took an all-hands-on-deck approach. He made sure to cut through the red tape. He made sure to provide the assistance and the collaborations that were needed. And our administration took significant action, and we partnered with state agencies, local governments, the private sector, and that, again, that speaks to the importance of the theme, Partnering for Success. So in collaboration with our partners, we had resources in place, we had key personnel ready to move quickly once the storms had moved through Florida. And so some of those examples of things that we pre-positioned were 42,000 linemen. We know how important restoration is for power. Over 125 highway patrol units ready to transport utility crews once it was safe, 5,000 National Guardsmen that the governor called up, as well as additional 2,000 National Guardsmen from other states, 8 urban search and rescue teams ready to perform those very important functions, 3.5 million meals, almost 2 million gallons of bottled water to distribute, again, once it was safe for our personnel to be deployed. And so hurricane planning, again, makes all the difference. We want to make sure that hurricane preparation and preparedness, all of those efforts that you all are undertaking, that the state is ready to support. Hurricane Ian reached Category 5 status with 161 miles per hour winds. And barreling across our state, we saw the devastation, we saw the destruction, homes, schools, businesses, churches, our state's infrastructure. Prior to landfall, we began initiating our state's response and recovery efforts. Governor DeSantis requested that the president grant a major disaster declaration amongst all 67 counties. He also requested that FEMA provide 100% federal cost share for debris removal and emergency protective measures. FEMA is an important partner. I know they're represented here as well, and so those first 60 days are key. In addition, First Lady Casey DeSantis, she really initiated a tremendous effort, heroic effort, in activating our state's disaster fund to support impacted communities. In the first 48 hours after Hurricane Ian made landfall, she was able to raise over $20 million in donation, and that ultimately raised a total of $65 million. So again, those are really important efforts that are coordinated across the spectrum of state government and across the private sector as well. We cannot forget our partners in the private sector. And it's been truly remarkable and inspiring to see so many Floridians come together and unite on behalf of helping our communities recover. Those sizable donations have been awarded, and many organizations such as the Salvation Army, Save the Children, American Red Cross, other nonprofit and faith-based organizations were able to quickly put those funds to use and help impacted Floridians quickly. With more than 1,000 USAR team members performing search and rescue efforts in the hardest hit areas, we've seen just so many lives that were saved and so many opportunities to really come in and help our fellow Floridians. Division of Emergency Management began identifying locations and resources needs for potential pods, so our points of distribution. Those were located in Charlotte, Hardee, Highlands, Lee, Okeechobee, and Sarasota counties prior to landfall. And then our Division of Emergency Management recovery staff also deployed to conduct rapid damage assessments in Polk, Sarasota, Collier, and Manatee counties to be able to expedite those important federal funds for disaster recovery. We also have an EMAC compact, as you all know, more than 1,800 personnel from 26 states that were deployed to assist Florida in their time of need. So those first few days, as I mentioned, we had more than 3.5 million bottles of water that were distributed to points of distribution, more than 829,000 meals. And with over 2.6 million citizens without power, our administration acted quickly to ensure that our businesses and our households could get back online. Those 42,000 linemen that I mentioned that were deployed across the state, they worked 24/7 to restore power to hundreds of thousands of Floridians, and we had so many of our highway patrol assisting in that endeavor as well. Also something unique, for the first time we partnered with SpaceX. They provided Floridians with access to more than 800 satellites through their Starlink, which is the world's largest satellite constellation that uses lower Earth orbit to be able to deploy internet access. And so this allowed for local businesses to get back online. It allowed for hospitals to get back online and for pharmacies to be able to provide services to Floridians. This connectivity initiative also helped our schools. We know how important it is to get our kids back in school, so that was something that we were really excited to be able to partner with SpaceX and do that. And so we restored access, not just from an internet perspective, but also from an infrastructure perspective. I'm sure you all saw the footage of the Pine Island Bridge Causeway as well as the Sanibel Causeway, and so that was something that the governor tasked Department of Transportation. He said he didn't want any red tape, he didn't want any bureaucracy, he didn't want any excuses holding up access to those important key points in Sanibel as well as Pine Island. And so what we were able to do was nothing short of historic, nothing short of miraculous, really. We were able to restore access within 3 days and within 15 days to both those areas. And that, I can tell you, is something that were it not for the governor's leadership would not have happened. And so our FDOT crews were able to make temporary repairs and then ultimately working on the permanent repairs as well. So as Lieutenant Governor, I too was committed in assisting in these endeavors and was available and working with our state agencies, prioritizing visiting areas that were most affected. In collaboration with our state agencies, we visited shelters, we distributed meals. We also interacted with Floridians affected by the storm. Sometimes people just want to see someone there. They just want someone to listen. So we had our faith-based organizations that really stepped up. They were delivering food. They were praying with Floridians. They were giving Floridians an opportunity to go in and to be able to, even something as simple as washing their clothes in temporary washing facilities. So all of those things really take a yeoman's effort to collaborate and to partner. And so as if dealing with the effects of Hurricane Ian wasn't enough, then late in the season we saw Hurricane Nicole exacerbated the impacts on our coastal communities. I too had an opportunity to visit with those areas, and really devastating. And what we saw was dune erosion, significant storm surge impacting the structures of buildings. And so again, the governor decided to engage in this section and make sure that he directed the Department of Environmental Protection $20 million that we provided for beach restoration. And those are things that are going to be ongoing, and the legislature addressed it in a special session, they addressed it in this budget, and so we're going to continue to support those communities that were affected. And so we decided that it was our responsibility to affect change and to make sure that we worked with communities. So the governor has kept his promises to date. The Florida Division of Emergency Management has obligated nearly $800 million. We've been able to generate over $1.2 billion in federal resiliency funds. And we've also opened emergency bridge loans, approving $37 million in loans to help more than 900 businesses. And working with so many state agencies to ensure that we're addressing the need at the moment. We've also led the first of its kind Florida housing program to give Floridians a temporary home. We've installed nearly 1,000 trailers, and that came as a great source of relief to so many. And we recently awarded $3 million from the Florida Disaster Fund to the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association to provide some relief to those businesses that were impacted. So we know that recovery is a long process. We've seen it, we've lived through it. We want to make sure that our administration is committed to helping Floridians every step of the way. We won't just be there while the cameras are on. I know the governor has said that many times. We're going to stay there through the long haul. And so I want to thank in particular our division director, Kevin Guthrie. He has just been stellar and really such a strong partner, working across state agencies, working across levels of government, and also all of you that are in the room, our local emergency managers, everyone that provides an opportunity to assist Floridians during these most difficult times. Thank you for your volunteerism, our first responders that are our heroes, our unsung heroes in the room that do the work behind the scenes. Thank you for all of you for being here, for your interest in making sure that we continue to lead the way. Florida is often said that is the gold star, the gold standard in terms of emergency management. I can tell you that I know that the work you do each and every day not only prepares us and makes us stronger and more resilient as a state, but we also are the blueprint for the rest of the country. So thank you all. It's been a privilege, it's been an honor, and we appreciate your work.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Nunez. You and the governor have been a great supporter of emergency management and our first Hurricane Center in Miami. Mr. Rome has served as the National Hurricane Center Deputy Director since 2022, although he served this past season as Acting Director. He joined the National Hurricane Center in 1999 as a Marine forecaster and became a hurricane specialist in 2006. Eventually being selected as the lead NHC Storm Surge Program in 2008. Jamie oversaw the National Hurricane Center's production of the official storm surge forecasts during tropical cyclone threats in the United States, supported the nation's hurricane warning program, and facilitated post-storm response and recovery efforts. During the off-season, he led storm surge research and development activities at the Hurricane Center, including updates to the storm surge modeling system, developing new products, and post-storm analysis and validation studies. Mr. Rome received both his bachelor's and master's degree in meteorology from North Carolina State University. Mr. Rome also participates in the National Hurricane Center's outreach program by participating in hurricane preparedness activities and serves as a subject matter expert on a world meteorological team aimed at improving storm surge prediction capabilities within other nations, especially the Caribbean and Central America. For his pioneering work in these new storm surge forecast and warning systems, Jamie received the National Weather Service Isaac Klein Award in 2016 and 2021, the 2017 Department of Commerce Gold Medal Award, and in 2019, the NOAA Administrative Award, and finally, the prestigious 2019 Samuel J. Heyman Service to America Medal Award, also known as the Sammys. It is my true honor and pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Jamie Rome.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you first and foremost for having the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service on this important stage to kick off your conference. And for those who saw this speech in New Orleans at the National Hurricane Conference, please bear with me. I'm going to do something here to hopefully encapsulate the spirit, theme of this conference. I want you to stand if you were involved in the forecast or communication of Hurricane Ian. Yes, Weather Service. I want you to stand. Stay standing. Stay standing. I want you to stand if you were involved in the frontline evacuations associated with Hurricane Ian. The response and recovery associated with Hurricane Ian. I want you to stand if you were deployed and left your home during Ian. Served in the community to support the extensive damage associated with Ian. I want you to stand if you donated money. I want you to stand if you, in the media, covered the storm or its aftermath. I want you to stand if you were at all associated with the extensive recovery associated with this devastating storm. So one thing sort of jumps out at you. Now you're all uncomfortable. You can sit back down. Whether you like it or not, we are a family. We are a community. And as brutal as this year was, it is time to heal those wounds and commence the process of readying ourselves and the state for this hurricane season a mere 3 weeks away. So I'm going to be talking to you today about the impacts and lessons learned from 2022 hurricane season. But first, for those of you who did see the New Orleans, I did sneak in a surprise for you. I'm going to confess, I love baseball. I love the game, the strategy. So my first slide, I think I'm going to frame it. It's from a movie called For Love of the Game. Kevin Costner, who's the star of the primary player in this scene in the movie, is a Major League Baseball player nearing the end of his career. His arm is wearing out. He can't throw nearly as fast as the younger players and pitchers coming up. And the game is changing. He finds himself unsure if he can continue to be competitive in this world, a situation I think many of us find ourselves in today. So let's see if my technology is good. I'm going to try to play it.
I was telling him,
clear the mechanism. Hello, Mike.
The moral of this short clip is, in a world where it has come all too common to criticize and take pop shots from the sideline, to easily write tweets and to say things, to easily make your own forecast, our job more than ever is to clear the mechanism and throw strikes. And that is the message of this speech. So first of all, I want to take you back and do a little context. So often in storytelling, people forget the value of context. I want to walk you through 20 years of progress within the National Weather Service. Extensive improvements in track errors. The track errors is what we refer to as how accurate the forecast of the hurricane is. We've lowered our track errors by as much as 50% over the last 20 years. Intensity errors too, although that's been staggered in probably more the last 5 to 8 years, we finally cracked that nut and making extensive improvements in our intensity forecast, especially rapid intensification. You'll see that come out later in the presentation. We've extended our forecast from 3 days to 5 days, increased the lead times of our watches and warnings, and developed a probabilistic hazard information and forecasting framework that I will argue has led the agency. And I mean, I could go on and just have a speech about this topic alone. That's just to give you a sense of the rapid changes in science and technology that have occurred within the arena of hurricane forecasting and communication. This is the chart. If you're not used to this chart, what we have is we've plotted the decline in error. So, error is bad, obviously, in forecasting. So this will show you the decline in error that has occurred over the last couple decades at each of the forecast times. So each color is a different forecast time. And you notice that in 2022, significant improvements. We set several records in terms of skill, and notably there in the 24 to 120 hour, so it's highlighted in green if it sets a record. Similar for intensity error, again, you see a downward trend. And for those of you who've been around in hurricane, I had to look at this a couple times myself when it was first presented to me by the forecasters because I thought it was a mistake. Look at the 72-hour intensity error is now under 10 knots, or roughly 10 miles per hour. For those of us who've been around forever, we never thought, that seemed like a dream to get those intensity errors that low. And this is I think the biggest bulk of that has come in our ability to project and communicate rapid intensification. So the chart on the left shows the distribution of errors in intensity. Notice how they're skewed towards the negative side. There's more orange on the negative side of that graph, meaning we weren't able to predict rapid intensification, so we had a negative bias. Now, if you look on the one on the right, which is an updated graph, you can see the error distributions are now a bit more normally distributed, meaning we've really eliminated those huge buffs on the rapid intensification. The seasonal impacts from a whole, if we look at it from a whole perspective, 5 U.S. landfalls, two of which came from Ian, had Tropical Storm Colin in South Carolina. Fiona, a lot of people forget about Fiona, but a devastating hurricane down in Puerto Rico. Ian, obviously, while it briefly made status as Category 5, it made landfall as Category 4 in southwest Florida. Nicole is a Category 1. The direct fatalities, 72, 66 of which were from Ian. Indirect fatalities. This is a continued trend. This is something you want to pay attention to. We're seeing an overall decline in direct fatalities with a corresponding increase in indirect fatalities, and we'll talk a bit more about this later, and a staggering $113 billion with a B dollars in damage. Fiona, I want to focus on this one. This is yet another example of why you should not focus on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Let me say it again, because you're all going to nod your head and say, yeah, and then you're going to go do it this season. You are. Trust me, you're going to do it. So let me say it again. Another example of why you should not focus on the Saffir-Simpson scale. While it was merely a Cat 1, merely a Cat 1 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, it produced 32 inches of rain. If you're not familiar with what 32 inches of rain, that's nearly 3 feet of water coming down on you pretty quickly. I think those of us here in Broward can sympathize with what that will do, given what we experienced a couple weeks ago. Hurricane Nicole, unusually late season hurricane. A lot of people get enamored with the calendar and fixate themselves on when hurricanes can and can't come to their area. I hear it all the time. Oh, it's October, they don't come here. It's November, they don't come here. Another case of don't get stuck in these conventional wisdoms. And so while it was an unusually late hurricane, it certainly packed a pretty decent punch for those of us here in Florida. U.S. damage is $1 billion. Speaking of track and intensity, I want to show you, so the blue lines here on the left diagram show you all the forecasts all the forecasts, the track forecasts that were made by the Hurricane Center during Nicole, and the red line is the best track of what occurred. If you're struggling to see the best track or the red line, that's because the blue lines cover it up. That's a sign that the forecast was not only remarkably consistent, but remarkably accurate. And on the right panel, the black line is the official intensity forecast. Low is better on this graph. The colored bars are all the models that you're enamored with. What do you see in this image? Throw strikes. You're going to see this theme come out more and more. As a community, we are far too focused on models. Throw strikes. Although this talk would be incomplete if we didn't talk about the very painful, and I mean this personally, Hurricane Ian briefly made Category 4 status offshore before moving ashore as a Category 4 on the southwest coast of Florida. Here's some meteorological statistics that you've already probably seen before. Tied for the 5th strongest U.S. hurricane landfall on record, and $113 billion. $113 billion. I mean, that's a big number if you stop and think about it for a second. The story of Hurricane Ian that never got told was, again, all of the blue lines represent all of the official forecasts, in this case intensity, made by the Hurricane Center. And I will tell you right now, I'm unapologetic in bragging on the Hurricane Center forecasters. They came out of the gate strong on that intensity forecast, which is an incredibly scary forecast to make. Because once you squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube, you can't get it back in. So if you come out too strong and the storm doesn't develop, you've done huge, huge damage to your credibility. Likewise, if you pause and wait for certainty for something, you waste precious time. So they aggressively came out of the gate with what I thought was one of the most aggressive, bold, and impressive forecasts I've seen in my 23 years, and nailed the rapid intensification. I mean, if you think back to the messaging, it wasn't, a major hurricane might move into the Gulf of Mexico, whatever. It was a definitive. A major hurricane is going to move in the eastern Gulf of Mexico and likely impact the west coast of Florida. This is messaging and lead times that for those of us who are dinosaurs thought never possible, and likely saved numerous lives. This story was never told. I want to quickly take you through the story. Storm surge was the story. I think you've all seen this video before, but I want you to pay particular attention to the house in the video and look really, really closely at the windows. Do you see the shades opening and shutting on the door? See it? There were people in that house. So for those of you who don't know this, we evacuate in this nation for storm surge. With the exception of mobile homes or other poorly engineered buildings, the primary reason we evacuate in this country is because of storm surge. Let me say that again. The primary reason we evacuate in this country is because of storm surge. Yet we are absolutely enamored as a country with the Saffir-Simpson scale. It is a wind scale. You've got to stop focusing on the wrong things. Storm surge is historically the biggest killer in these storms, and we'll talk about that in a second. Oh, how did I go back? We went back too quick. All right, this is some of the damage really quickly for that. Hurricane Ian focused, here's some of the statistics there, 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. If you're not familiar, contextually, I stand 6 feet tall, just to give you a perspective on how that goes. Now, one of the other narratives that emerged in Ian is that the forecast abruptly changed. Hard right hook. Caught everybody off by surprise. So I'm going to walk you through the forecast. So you have the cone here, as well as the evolution of the storm surge watches and warnings. So this is the evolution. I'm going to walk you through it. So when you stop focusing so much on the cone and focus on the impacts, did the forecast change? Let me go back. Let me see if I can go backwards. Maybe I can't. All right. The point of it is stop focusing so much on the cone. You're all going to sit there and nod, yeah, and then you're going to do it. When we issue a storm surge watch or warning, we mean it. It should have the same shock as the hurricane watch or warning. Let me say that again. The storm surge watch or warning should have the same impact on you as a hurricane watch or warning. So I want to do a deeper dive here on Ian because there's a lot of misinformation out there about its impact on the southwest coast of Florida. If you look at the number of people who were exposed to life-threatening storm surge, we estimated using, and these are rough numbers because the census is tough, exposed 157,000 people to life-threatening storm surge, which was more than all of the storms in 2020 and 2021 combined. So think about that as you write a narrative on Ian. So let's look at Ian versus the last big storm that rapidly intensified before hitting the coast of Florida, Michael. Michael exposed about 8,000 people to storm surge. Direct live 16, storm surge fatalities 5. Ian had more than 20x the exposure to population as Michael. So was it any more deadly, or did it just hit a densely populated area? Nobody told that story. Direct lives from Michael were 66. These are storm surge, and 41 surge, sorry. What about coastal population trends? In case you've been living under a rock, everybody's been moving to Florida at a breakneck pace. And they've been moving to the southwest coast of Florida. Is it fair to say that we might have had a huge number of people who experienced a hurricane for the first time? You didn't hear that part of the story. And you certainly didn't hear this part of the story. A study done of population and how they react to hurricanes up in Connecticut, and I know we can't globalize this, but let's just say it's roughly the same, looked at a segmentation of the storms, or the population based off how they react to hurricanes. So 1 out of 5, 21%, or they're out, man. So the thing rolls off Africa, tropical wave rolls off Africa, they're gone. Man, they don't need any motivation, they're out of here. You got another 15%, they probably wait for a cone to form or something to happen, right? And then they're gone. Then you got the middle, the optimists. They doubt that it will hit them, but with a little bit of encouragement, they'll go. These are the people that are probably reacting to hurricane warnings, storm surge warnings, evacuation orders. Then you got the reluctant. These are your knuckleheads that you have to hound on them pretty hard, but they'll eventually go. And then you got this portion down here, 22% of diehards, that basically no matter what you say to them, they're not going. If you don't believe me, think about your dinner conversations at Thanksgiving with your family. You all have one of those crazy uncles that, no matter what you say to them, cling to some odd notion, right? So roughly 20% of the population aren't going to move no matter what you say. So let's assume 22% of that population in Lee County, multiply it by the total number of people in Zone A. It's 52,000 people you would expect to have stayed. I don't know. Suddenly a different narrative starts to emerge when you look at things through a broader context. And would it shock you if I told you that Lee County is one of the most vulnerable from an infrastructure perspective in all the country? Maybe failure doesn't look like the right story. I want to walk you through, we updated the direct fatalities because I told you about this earlier. Historically, storm surge was the leading cause of death, but with trends in our ability to forecast and warn, that has now changed. Now, based off 2013 to 2022 statistics, 57% of the direct fatalities are now due to freshwater flooding. 15% are due to surf or rip currents. These are people washed away by waves and that sort of stuff. 12% due to wind, and there's one hazard that seems to be missing in this analysis. Oh, there it is, 11% due to storm surge. These warnings work. These warnings work if you stop focusing on models and overusing the cone. Use the warnings, lead with the hazard. So I'm going to quickly walk you through my grand challenges here because I'm running out of time. But first I want to do a quick exercise. How many of you think if you were on a commercial aircraft and somebody came on the intercom and said, the two pilots are incapacitated. Anybody fly a plane? Emergency. There's a crisis, an emergency. Can you fly this airplane? We're going to have somebody give you instructions over the intercom or telephone. Can you land the aircraft? How many of you think you can do it? Come on now, people, be honest. Come on, you're not honest yet. All right. There's a poll on this because there's a poll on everything now. 1 in 3 Americans, including half of men. All right, dudes, you got something to learn out of this. 1 in 3 Americans, including half of men, think they can land that aircraft. You want to know what the real chance is? 0. 0. And now I'm going to shift to talking about models. Why? Because we're doing the exact same thing to our public. When we show them the models, we're effectively asking them to land the aircraft by themselves. There's no way they can pick which model. There's no way, even if they did pick the right model, they could back out the impacts and hazards. And better yet, if you're so enamored with which model is the best, I'm going to tell you, it's the official forecast issued by the National Weather Service. And we've got the stats to prove it. They're right here. This is how our 96-hour track error compared against all the models, right, over the last couple of seasons. So track error is on the vertical axis. You want to be low. And consistency is on the x-axis. That's how much you jump all over the place. I want to go over here. Now I want to go, no, over there. All right, so you want to be far left. So you want to be on the far left-hand corner of that diagram. The black dot is the official forecast issued by the National Hurricane Center. The other dots are some of the models that I hear you people talking about. So the next time you have an urge to text me, did you see the European model? I'm going to tell you now what my response is. Yeah, we do this for a living. And in wrapping up, I just want to urge, as a community, we have to stop asking our publics to land the aircraft. It is our job to look at the models, give you the official forecast, and from that, you derive the impacts to your local community and prepare your community for those impacts. Stop being enamored by the models. Stop being distracted by the models and throw strikes. Thank you so much for your attention this morning.
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate it. It's always been a pleasure to work with you. You're truly a professional in your field. We really appreciate it. Last year, we offered a panel discussion during our general session and received many positive feedback and responses. So this year, we thought we would try it again, but with a few new twists. In keeping with our theme, we want to examine one important aspect of hurricane responses this year: our successful partnerships. We realized that no one single speaker could adequately cover this topic, so we invited 4 prominent emergency managers that were directly involved in the Florida response this year to tell the story. Each speaker will present their perspective: federal, state, local, and private sector. We are also inviting you to participate in the discussion. Over the past few days, we have been asking you via social media to post your questions that you would like us to ask our panelists on Twitter. In case you haven't had the chance, please post your question on Twitter within the next 10 minutes. I think my slide is, I need a slide. The hashtag is hashtag AskGHC2023. There you go. Thanks, guys. So our Palm Beach County Public Affairs staff are in the back monitoring Twitter, and they'll be filtering those questions. They'll be collecting all those questions, and then they'll be sending them to me on my trusty phone. And so I'll be able to, in real time, be able to ask some of those questions to the panel. So in the meantime, let me introduce to you our panelists. First speaker is Ms. Gracia Check. She is the Regional Administrator for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Region 4. Appointed in February 2015, she leads all activities in support of FEMA's mission with state and tribal partners in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Administrator Check has overseen FEMA operations for all presidentially declared major disasters in Region 4, which account for roughly a quarter of all declarations in the United States and its territories. She has also initiated a variety of programs to improve cooperation and coordination between FEMA and its stakeholders to streamline the disaster response and recovery operations. These include the Partners in Emergency Management Workshops, the Southeast Private Public Partners Summits, the Southeast Radiological Emergency Preparedness Workshop, as well as numerous individual and community preparedness campaigns and community outreach seminars. Before joining FEMA, Administrator Check spent 4 years with GEMA, the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, as the Assistant Director of Operations. Administrator Check began her emergency management career in disaster response with the American Red Cross in Savannah, Georgia, and will provide us the federal perspective. Our next speaker is Mr. Kevin Guthrie, who has more than 30 years of experience in public safety and emergency management in the state of Florida. He spent 23 years as a police officer in emergency management coordinator in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. He served as the Public Safety and Emergency Management Director for Flagler County for 2 years before moving to Pasco County, where he was initially the Emergency Services Director and later promoted to Assistant County Administrator. In 2018, Governor Rick Scott appointed him to the FDEM Chief of Staff position, and last May, Governor Ron DeSantis appointed him as Director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management. Kevin has received numerous awards for his efforts and success in emergency management and holds a Master of Arts in Human Services from Liberty University and a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice from Columbia College. Mr. Guthrie will provide us with a state perspective. Ms. Sandra Tapfumene serves as the Division Chief of Emergency Management for Lee County in Southwest Florida since January of 2021. She is the first woman to hold this position in Lee County. Prior to this appointment, she served as the Operations Chief for Lee County Emergency Management since 2012 and briefly served as the Lee County Animal Services Director in 2020. Sandra's significant hurricane experience includes Hurricane Irma in 2017, where she led the Lee County EOC operations section and her team to successfully manage one of the largest sheltering operations in Florida's history, sheltering over 35,000 people and 3,600 pets. She was then deployed to Florida's Panhandle in response to Hurricane Michael in 2018 and served as the Human Services Branch Director for the Bay County EOC. Fast forward, Sandra served as the Incident Commander for the Lee County EOC during the preparation and response to Hurricane Ian, one of the most destructive and landfalling hurricanes to hit Florida. Under her leadership, Sandra's team worked diligently to stabilize the impacted community and successfully manage the awe-inspiring response from partner agencies and statewide emergency management colleagues. Before coming to Lee County, Sandra worked for 7 years as an emergency management consultant for the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. She also worked for Human Rights as an intern for President Jimmy Carter at the Atlanta-based Carter Center. Sandra will present to us the local perspective. And finally, Mr. Brock Long is the Executive Chairman for Hagerty Consulting. Mr. Long is a former administrator for the FEMA, appointed back in 2017, and has more than 18 years of experience assisting and supporting local, state, and federal governments to build robust emergency management and public health preparedness programs. Since 2011, he has worked in executive leadership roles at Hagerty Consulting, where he provided strategic direction and leadership to the firm's full complement of emergency management programs and professionals. Mr. Long has served as a project executive for countless projects in all parts of the United States. Prior to Hagerty, Mr. Long served as the director of Alabama's Emergency Management Agency, where he served as the state's coordinating officer, and prior to that, he served as FEMA Region 4's Hurricane Program Manager and FEMA's Hurricane Liaison Leader. Mr. Long has served as a private sector chairman for the National Emergency Management Association, and over his career, Mr. Long has worked on some of the nation's largest projects addressing emerging issues in readiness, disaster response, and recovery. Brock will provide us with a private sector perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our panel, Administrator Check, Directors Guthrie and Tapfumene, and Executive Chairman Brock Long. So I hope my microphone's working. Cool. So we want to do this as a rather informal question and answer type process here. So I thought what I would do, again, thank you very much for being here. We're excited to have you here. I thought the first question I would ask to Sandra, if you would. Hurricane Ian caused widespread catastrophic damage in the state of Florida. The bulk of that destruction was concentrated in Lee County, and as a massive storm with landfall at its coast, can you just provide us a little bit of an impact on what Hurricane Ian had on the Lee County and your community?
Sure. Well, first, Bill, we just wanted to, on behalf of the panel, thank you for inviting us here to talk about partnerships during Hurricane Ian. We have a lot of information to share today, but I'd like to start off by showing a video that our community engagement team put together. They did a wonderful job throughout the response and recovery time period, putting together videos so that we could visually depict the progress that we were making. So this video we're going to roll, it shows the impacts to Lee County.
Hurricane Ian made landfall in Lee County on September 28, 2022 as a Category 4 with wind speeds of 155 miles an hour. As soon as it was evident that Ian was going to make a direct hit to Lee County, our team, along with our state and federal partners, were working actively on the response and our recovery efforts. The damage sustained was immense, and we have a long road to recovery.
received catastrophic damage throughout the county. Those 35 miles the video talks about having the most erosion, that was where the storm surge impacts were the greatest. And Lee County is exceptionally flat, and so not only did it affect the coastline, but the storm surge traveled 4 to 6 miles inland. So any homes that were in low-lying areas within those areas also sustained major flooding, some of them multiple feet of flooding within their homes. So as you can imagine, we had massive amounts of debris. Our solid waste team that is here did a tremendous job coordinating the debris response with our vendors, and throughout the whole county, we have still doing our last sweeps, but we'll have about 11 million cubic yards of debris, which I know if you're not in the debris world, that might be a little bit hard to conceptualize, but to compare to Hurricane Irma, we only had 3 million cubic yards of debris. So we had boats where cars should have been, cars where boats should have been, obviously massive destruction to infrastructure. In addition to the debris, we had the bridges. You heard Lieutenant Governor Nunes talk about how the bridges were washed out. We have 15 barrier islands that protect the Lee County coast, and there's bridges that connect to most of those islands. We had Sanibel Bridge and Pine Island Bridge that were the ones that you see all the pictures of where there was a washout along those. They were completely impassable. And so that was another tremendous impact that we had to address right away. And then also our traditional loss of power, loss of communications. But the other thing that was unique about this event is that we also had critical impacts to our water and wastewater systems. And our utilities team within the first couple of days were able to isolate some of the severe breaks and put temporary fixes. FDEM partnered with us to address some more temporary repairs across the county. But that was something that was a bit unique for this storm for us. If you go to leegov.com, that's our website for the county, leegov.com, there is a tab up, something that was a bit unique for this storm for us. If you go to leegov.com, that's our website for the county, leegov.com, there is a tab up there that says Hurricane Ian Progress Report. There is a lot of information about impacts. There's an interactive map that you can click on to see damages in certain parts of the county from damage assessments. So we would encourage anyone to go there and get more information.
Thanks, Sandra. And for the audience, you'll see, we can't necessarily see it, but behind us, there's screens of a variety of photos of Hurricane Ian and Nicole's damage as well as response. And so I thank all of the folks that have submitted those photos, and we appreciate that. But I think it also helps demonstrate, pictures worth 1,000 words, the enormity of not only the catastrophic damage the two storms created in Florida this year, but also the response. So Kevin, let me just ask what this means to you, and particularly in terms of some of the unconventional or non-traditional partners that we saw come into the state of Florida in response to this.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to let, to answer that question, I'm going to ask the tech crew, can you bring the house lights up for just a second? And then I'm going to ask, if you are in this room and you responded to Hurricane Ian or Nicole, whether you're private sector, Florida National Guard on this side of the house, all the way across, mutual aid, private sector, et cetera, please stand up right now. If you were involved in those 42,000 people, 48,000 people, just stay standing for just a second. Stay standing for just a second. Bill, as we talk about partnership for success, if you're a county emergency management director in this room, stay standing for just a second. You know, Bill, as we talk about partnership for success, if you're a county emergency management director in this room, partners, we ask people to do things that have never been done. I know Melissa Rudd, Major Rudd, and Colonel Sam Sargent are over here to my left. I ask them to do things that they've never done before, but not once do they ever come back and say, we can't do that. You know, we're here to serve. I've asked, you know, we did temporary repairs on water infrastructure. We were pulling experts from MIT and things like that. Again, it was a whole community response, without a doubt. And we're, you know, I'm very proud that, and especially, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't say Gracia and her team and the 11 federal urban search and rescue teams that came from around the country, the 26 states that responded through EMAC to this. Again, those are our conventional partners, but we asked them to probably do unconventional things. You know, one of the lessons learned from our team and the 11 federal urban search and rescue teams that came from around the country, the 26 states that responded through EMAC to this. Again, those are our conventional partners, but we asked them to probably do unconventional things. You know, one of the lessons learned for us that we'll take away, and I'll transition to somebody else, but I don't know why we never really thought about, we've always done air bridge missions to our barrier islands, and that's just kind of the way we've always done it, and that's one of the things that's a crucifier for our industry is the way we've always done it. You know, we could effectively do barge missions cheaper and more consistent than we could Chinook lift, right? So we had some capability restrictions, some capacity restrictions. And then our team, again, led by the Division of Emergency Management Logistics team, with other non-traditional partners, came in with barges. So that is now going to be in part of our logistics contract is a barge transportation plan to where we can bridge to barrier islands.
So, Gracia, I'll just transition to you a little bit. Again, there was a massive federal response as well. How did this response this season change, or what was different about it? What was innovative for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bill. And again, as Sandra said, it's a pleasure to be here, especially with this esteemed panel and the ones that I call friends also. So thank you. Before I really begin about talking about the federal response, just want to go over some numbers. And I know we've heard them already from Lieutenant Governor, from Kevin, from Sandra. But as Kevin said, 2.8 million power outages, 32.6 million cubic yards of debris. I know you said 16 million, 32.6. More than 6,100 structures were damaged and more than were destroyed, and over 15,700 sustained major damages. 183 healthcare facilities evacuated. 3,700 individuals were treated by 7 disaster medical assistance teams. As Kevin said, 11 federal and 8 state search and rescue task forces conducted over 5,500 rescues and over 87,000 building inspections. Millions of liters of water and other commodities, millions of other commodities were distributed, and then more than 4,000 responded. And that was our scope for just the initial planning. The disaster was vast. I mean, if you think about it, it impacted every aspect of the hardest hit communities. In every step, what we had to do was think about how we could streamline that process, how we could deliver the aid and assistance to all the affected populations as quickly as possible. We've heard, I know all of you have heard it, go big, go fast. But that definition was redefined daily. Just like Kevin said, what we've done before, that might not be sufficient, and it wasn't sufficient at times. One of the things that we did, all of you know the declaration request went quickly. The president declared it. But how we got there was we used geospatial technology to expedite the development of information to support that process. And then to produce post-landfall comprehensive incident impact analysis. So we started with that. And then the GIS teams conducted 54,000 remote damage assessments that identified 24,000 residential structures that sustained damages. And we did that by existing databases, crowdsourcing, and high-resolution imagery from satellite, air, and ground to conduct those assessments. So to speed the delivery of assistance to survivors using all of that technology, we completed over 5,600 virtual inspections, home inspections. That led to $78.3 million in assistance to those survivors without doing or waiting for an in-person inspection. So a lot of good things went on during that time.
It's fantastic. Let me scoot over here to Brock now. So we witnessed numerous private sector contractors and teams come in to kind of augment this. What challenges, and maybe I'll ask Sandra as well to chime in on this, what challenges did they face, and how did they assimilate into our Florida system, if you will?
Well, the challenges are industry-wide, so I'm going to answer. I'm going to start by asking you a question, Sandra and Kevin.
It wasn't allowed.
Did you have enough? Did you have enough technical expertise, staff, and equipment to handle one storm, Ian?
Nope.
How many staff do you have in your emergency management agency?
We have 12.
12. And how much money are you receiving? If you were a multi-billion-dollar company, how many employees would you have?
More than 12.
And so the
More than 198.
Here's the thing that I learned, and I'm very, very fortunate spending time inside the public and private sector. And my father always told me, Brock, never miss a good opportunity to keep your mouth shut, and it's never worked. But write that one down. The problem that I see in our industry is that there is too much focus, and there was a recent report by GAO that makes me want to vomit that says FEMA is understaffed. Why are we only looking at the staffing levels at FEMA and not at all levels of government? But then also major provisions were made, and we got the laws changed with the Disaster Recovery Reform Act, and a lot of people